Welcome to this training video. In this training video, I will actually discuss the object-oriented programming related features in PHP 5. I will not discuss what object-oriented programming is or the different features of object-oriented programming, but what I will discuss is the features, object-oriented features that are provided by PHP 5. I assume that you already know PHP to some extent. Also, you do understand object-oriented programming. I will just show the different features, different object-oriented programming related features that are provided by PHP 5. What are new, what are changed, all those things. By the way, this is Said. I provide consulting service under Just Etc. Technologies Canada. Okay, what are new in PHP 5 for object-oriented programming? We can see that in PHP 5, the object model is completely rewritten. What does it mean? That in the way object-oriented programming was defined in PHP 4, PHP 5 completely rewrote. Actually, there is a drastic change from PHP 4 to PHP 5 in terms of object-oriented programming. There are many very limited features or very limited options for object-oriented programming in PHP 4, but in PHP 5 it has come very close to the other strong object-oriented programming language like Java or C++. It has come very close. So PHP 5 has rewritten the object model to provide better performance and to provide more features in terms of object-oriented programming. So here you can see that PHP 5 treats objects as references. What does it mean? That a PHP 5 object variable, it does not contain the object itself, but it contains a memory address. It contains a memory address where the object is located. So each object variable contains an object reference rather than a copy of the entire object. So the object variable will contain the address or a reference. And in PHP 5, object is passed as pass by reference by default. So when an object is sent by argument, or when an object is returned from a function, or when an object is assigned to another variable, it is done by pass by reference. And the same object is being pointed to. So what are new in PHP 5 for object-oriented programming? We can see that PHP 5 has a full object model, and PHP 5 has introduced visibility. PHP 4 did not have this visibility, and by visibility we mean that from where all the methods and properties can be accessed and can be seen. So the terms like private, public, protected, these are introduced in PHP 5. I will discuss what those mean. Actually, these are pretty similar to C++ or Java. PHP 5 also has introduced abstract classes. So it is also like Java or C++ abstract class. You cannot create an object based on abstract class. And by abstract class, we can define the base classes and define the common nature of a particular real-life object, and then the extended inherited classes. By extending this abstract class, can create the actual class or actual object. And PHP 5 also has introduced final classes and final methods. It does mean that final classes are final, they cannot be extended, and finally methods are final. They cannot be redeclared or overridden in the child or extended classes. So PHP 5 has added additional magic methods. So there were magic methods in PHP 4, but PHP 5 has added more magic methods. Magic methods through magic method, PHP 5 provides overloading concept. And in PHP 5, the overloading concept is a little bit different than C++ or Java. In PHP 5, overloading means dynamically creating methods or properties for the undefined methods or undefined properties. I think if you want to create dynamically methods and properties at runtime through magic methods, PHP 5 provides that feature. Interfaces, PHP 5 has added interfaces. The concept interface was added in PHP 5. Interface defines a set of methods that a class must implement. Interface just have the method declarations, but the classes who will implement this interface have to implement all the methods as declared in the interface. Cloning. PHP 5 has introduced cloning as well. Using cloning, you can create a PHP object based on an existing PHP object. Type hinting. This is also a new feature in PHP 5. Through type hinting, you can define the parameter for a function, the type of the parameter for a function. You can say that this function expects an object as a parameter, or this function expects an array as a parameter. And this applies only to objects and arrays. In general, you can just give the variable name. You don't need to give the type of the variable. Okay. So how does a class look like in PHP 5? You can see this is a simple class in PHP 5. You have to use the reserved.class, and you can keep the name of your class. You can see curly brackets, and you can see the property, and you can see a method. I have used the visibility term public here. So what can be the name of a class? Class name can be any varied level, but they cannot be the reserved words as used by PHP. Reserved word, then if, else, while, for, class, interface, all these are reserved words. PHP has some specific meaning for these words, so you cannot use these words as the name of classes. You can see list of keywords, predefined classes, predefined constants. All these reserved words, you cannot use them as the name for classes. Note also, class name cannot start with a number. It has to start with an underscore or an alphabet. So these are the reserved words. You cannot use them to name a class. So a varied class name can start with a letter or underscore followed by any number of letters, numbers, or underscores. The numbers cannot be in the beginning of a class name. Here is the regular expression for a valid class name. A class can contain constants or variables whom we called properties, that we call properties. A class can contain functions that we call methods. Just you can see properties and methods. $this is a variable that can be used inside a class to refer to the other properties or methods inside the same class. You can see we have used $this var. This actually indicates this variable. Create objects, create instances of classes. Create objects. Okay, how to create object or how to create instance of classes. You have to use the keyword new to create an instance of a class or to create an object. You can see here we are creating an instance of an object, instance of a class or an object, just new simple class. A copy of an already created object can be made by cloning it. You can use clone function to create a copy of an existing object. You can see the example here in the manual. So clone example so you can see cloning inheritance thing. Inheritance, it provides using inheritance you can just extend the functionality of a class. You can define a new class that need to use the existing properties and methods of a particular class that wants then the properties methods of an existing class to be part of it, and in addition it wants to add some more methods and properties. So in that case you can use inheritance, just like you can create a pet class and then you can create cat or dog by inheriting the base pet class. You want all, all the features of a pet, some basic, all the common features of pets in the pet class, and then you can extend and add more methods to define the cat or dog. The same thing can happen. You can define a base car class, provide all the methods and properties there, and then you can define Honda, Toyota, Honda Civic or Toyota Corolla or Mercedes or some sports cars. You can extend the existing class and create the extended classes. So anyway, the keyword, when you want to extend the base class, you have to use the term extends, inherits the methods and properties of another class means the base class. And another thing is in PHP 5, multiple inheritance is not allowed. You can just inherit only one class from one class. A class can only inherit from one base class. Another thing is you can override or redeclare the inherited methods and properties. Though final methods cannot be overridden. If you define a method as final in the base class, you cannot override or redeclare in the extended class in the child class. Overridden method must have the overridden method has to method signature has to be the same like the base class. Otherwise, strict error will be triggered. Constructor can be overridden with different parameters, and in that case, no strict error will be generated. These are just exceptions for constructor, but for methods, overridden strict error will be triggered. So you have to keep the same signature when overriding a method. Overridden method okay. The methods that we are overriding in the base class can be referenced using the parent and then scope resolution operator. Properties, we already know that class number variables are called properties. Properties can be declared with public, protected, or private. If we declare a variable using var like PHP4, that will be considered as public. If we do not provide any public, protected, or private, it will be treated as public. The default visibility is public. Public properties can be accessed everywhere. I think the object has to be accessed first. Protected properties can be accessed only within the class itself and only by inherited and parent classes. These are for protected properties, can be accessed only within the class itself and by inherited and parent classes. Private properties, private member variables can only be accessed by the class itself. Okay, these are some PHP 5 functions that can be applied on the class name or an object. Let's see, property exists, checks if the object or class has a property. So if you supply the object or class as parameter, it will check. I think you also have to supply the property name and it will check if that property belongs to that object or property or not. Method exists the similar way. It will check if a property, if a method belongs to a particular object or class. So property exists, class, property. So it will check if this property belongs to this class. So you can just take a look. Class constants. Classes can have constants. They're just some constant fixed values. They are not like variables. Interfaces can also have their own constants. You can see that we are using the term const to declare a constant. So we are accessing self constant. If we want to access the constant from the child class, we can use parent, scope resolution operator, this double colon, and then the variable constant. Auto-loading classes. This is also available in PHP4. Actually, you can define a function auto-load. Using this function, you can try to load the classes that PHP or your program cannot find right at this moment. So what will happen when you are trying to create an object based on a class? If at this point your program cannot find this class, it will call this autoload function, and this autoload function will try to find this class. We have to refer to the appropriate place to load the class 5 or the file what the class is declared. So this is just automatic call, and then we have to write whatever is required to make the unknown classes to be known. SPL autoload register, it provides a little bit of flexibility. It just helps you to define which function will do the task of autoload. In that case, you don't have to, the function name does not have to be autoload, but you can define the name of the function that will give the functionality of autoload. So here we can see SPL autoload register. It is just telling this loader function of current class will provide the autoload functionality. So defining a class, and in the constructor we are using this speed autoload register. It is telling this loader function will provide the autoload functionality. So we are creating an object of this class, and this constructor is being called, and we are defining that this is the function that is providing the autoload functionality. So when we are trying to create an object, new class or new class 2, if it does not understand the class 1, and then it will try to call this loader function and try to find out the file where this class is declared. Constructor. In object-oriented programming, we know that a class can have constructor. PHP 5 classes can also have constructor. And you can say that using this is the signature of the constructor method. So double underscore and then construct. When you define constructor in a base class, in a child class, in child class, it means that they have extended a base class, extended a parent class. So in the child class, if you define a constructor method, the base class's constructor method does not get called automatically. You have to call it explicitly. So in child class's constructor method, you can call parent scope resolution operator construct to call the base class's construct method. So when you override construct function in the child class, no strict error message is generated. But I think it is not generated even if you define with a different parameter. But for other functions, if you override them with different parameter, a strict error message will get triggered. If PHP 5 cannot find a constructor method using this signature, it will try to find out if there is any other constructor method defined like PHP 4. So it will depend on the version of the PHP that you are using. So here we can see that no construct method is defined, but this bar can be treated as constructor method based on the version of the PHP. In PHP 5.3.0 to PHP 5.3.2, this will be treated as a constructor method, but in PHP 5.3.3, this will be treated just as a regular function. Destructor. PHP 5 classes can also have the destructor like C++ or Java classes. So the signature of the destructor method has to be like this. So when will this destructor method get created? As soon as there are no other references to this particular object. If there is no reference to this particular object, then this destructor method will get created. Or when all the objects are being closing down as part of the program closing down, and in the sequence or at some point, this destructor method will get called. And another thing we have to remember that the child method's destructor method will not call the parent method's destructor method. If you want the base method's destructor method to be called, then you have to call it explicitly from the child method's destruct function. So this is the statement that you have to use. And if your program gets exited by using exit method, the destruct method will get executed. But if you want the destruct method to be exited when you will call the exit method from your program, then you have to define it inside the destruct method. To provide conditional statements. Okay, we already have used the term scope resolution operator, and it looks like this. So what what does this scope resolution operator provides? I think this token allows us to access the static properties or static methods of a class. We can access the constants of a class using this static method, or when we are overriding a method from the child class, we can call the overridden methods using this escape resolution operator that we have seen in different times, like the parent escape resolution operator. We already have seen those. Another note here is from PHP 5.3.0, you can refer the class name using a variable. What you can do, you can take the name of the class inside a variable into a variable, then you can call, let's say, a constant using that variable. Static keyword is used to define static methods or static properties. Static methods, static properties. Static properties and static methods, they can be called only inside from static methods. Non-static methods cannot call static methods or static properties. And static properties or static methods, they can be accessed directly by class name. You do not need to use, there does not need to have an instantiation of that object, and this class, these static properties and methods, they become part of the class, they are not part of the object. A property declared as static cannot be accessed with an instantiated class object. So an object variable cannot access the static property, and this variable is not available inside a static method. Static properties cannot be accessed through the object using the array operator, this, and this is referring to this point. Calling non-static method, just the regular method, statically generates an e-stack level warning. Abstract classes, you cannot create object, you cannot instantiate an object based on abstract class. Any class that has at least one abstract method must be declared as abstract. Abstract method will just provide the signature, just declare it, but abstract methods cannot be defined inside the abstract class. When you extend abstract class, you must have to define all the methods declared as abstract method. You have to define the code inside that abstract method. And also, when you define those methods, you must have to use lesser restricted visibility. For protected abstract method, you can use public or protected, but you cannot use private in the child class. It's not really child, but anyway. So this is the abstract class. There are two abstract methods and one common method. So we are extending this abstract class, and we are defining get value and prefix value to abstract methods. We have given the same visibility, but we have provided less visibility, public. But if we would be telling private, that would be an error. That is more restricted, but we need less restricted, same or less restricted visibility. Interface. Using interface, we define some methods. We declare some methods that a class must have to implement. So interfaces are implemented by classes using the keyword interface, and the classes must have to implement all the methods as defined, as declared inside the interface. Interface methods must have to be declared as public. So using the interface are defined using the interface keyword, just like we define the class and then class name. So you have to use interface and the interface name, then the brackets, and inside you can declare all the methods. So inside the interface, the contents of the methods will be absent. So interface is just specifying which method a class must implement, that I already have told. And also interface does not have to define how these methods are handled, and they also cannot define. It is the responsibility of the classes who will implement this interface. It is their responsibility to define how this code will be implemented, how the functionality will be implemented. All methods declared inside an interface must be public. Implementing interface. To implement interface, you have to use the term implements. Classes may implement multiple interfaces, but as we know that classes cannot extend multiple classes. A class cannot implement two interfaces if those interfaces have the similar, not similar, but the same class, same method name. Interfaces can be extended like classes using the extends operators. One interface can extend another interface. Interface constants, as we have told, both classes and interfaces can have constants. Interface constants works exactly like class constants. But there is only one exception, that these constants cannot be overridden by a class or interface that inherits it. Example interface. This is the interface to functions, both are public, no definition, just the declaration. Implements the interface. The definitions are here, and the signatures are all the same. Traits. What are traits? As PHP 5 does not allow to extend to different classes or multiple classes by one class, but sometimes it may be required that if a class may need to use different functionality or different methods of different classes, as it is not possible, so it just gives you alternatives. The concept is trait. In trait, we define some methods that different classes can make use of. So in trait, we define the different functions that different classes can use. So this is the trait. In this class, we are telling use this trait name. In this class, use this trait name, and from both of these classes, we can call all these functions. So traits is a mechanism for code reuse in single inheritance language such as PHP. So it enables a developer to reuse a set of methods freely in several independent classes, living in different class hierarchies. Precedence and traits. So here we are discussing It's the base class, the extended class, and the traits all have the same function name. So which one will be called when you call the function? The rule is the extended class gets the highest priority. What it means is if the extended class has the function with the same name, so that will get called, and then traits gets the priority. If the extended class does not have the function, but if the trait has the name method with the same name, then the method of the trait will get called. Still, the base class has the method with the same name, that will not get called, but if the trait has the method with the same name, that will get called. So the priority of the method declared in the base class has the least priority. So I think all these three statements, they are telling the same thing in different ways, and they are telling what I have just told. So what it is telling, an inherited member from a base class is overridden by a member inserted by a trait. So the base class method will get overridden by the trait method. And the second statement is telling the members of the current class will override the trait method, and the trait method will override the inherited method. That means the trait will override the base class method. So you already understand this. Overloading. So PHP overloading is little bit different than overloading concept in other object-oriented programming languages like C++ or Java. In PHP 5, overloading is a way to dynamically create properties or methods that are not already defined or that are inaccessible in current context or in current place. So how this is done? Actually, PHP provides some magic methods. Through these magic methods, this dynamic creation of properties and methods are done. So what happens is when you call the inaccessible or undeclared methods or properties, if PHP sees that these are not declared or inaccessible, they will call some corresponding magic methods, and those properties or methods will be created. So overloading in PHP provides means to dynamically create properties and methods. These dynamic entities are processed via magic methods. So when these properties or methods are not declared or are not visible in the current scope, these overloading methods are invoked. So here I'm just listing some magic methods that are being added in different versions of PHP 5. So you can see in PHP 5.3.0, the method call static is being added, and in PHP 5.1.0, the method isSet and unset are added. That means that before this PHP version, these magic methods are not there. So how this property overloading work? To provide the property overloading, there are 4 magic functions: set, get, isSet, unset. So we can say this set magic method will get executed when writing data to inaccessible properties. So if we tell that $this array operator x equals to 5, so if the x is not already defined, then this set method will get created, will get called, and this x property will be created. And this get method will be called if we try to read data from inaccessible or not declared properties. And isSet magic method will get called when we apply isSet or empty on an inaccessible or not declared properties. Unset magic method will get called when we call unset, apply unset on inaccessible or not declared properties. For method overloading, we have two methods, two magic methods, call and call static. I think call method will get triggered when we try to invoke inaccessible or not declared methods. And call static when we try to call a static method that is not already declared or inaccessible. In that case, call static magic method will be called. So achieving Java-like overloading. So far we have seen that PHP overloading is a little bit different than Java or C++ overloading. But if we want to achieve the similar type of overloading in PHP, what we can do? We can declare a function test, and inside that function we can use built-in PHP function number of argument just to count how many arguments are there, and function get arguments, get all the arguments, and depending on the outcome of this and some conditional logic, we can do different stuffs and we can get the same named function, but based on the number of parameters or the type of parameters or the value of the parameters, we can define different methods or different functionality, and we can achieve Java or C++ like overloading. Object iteration. PHP 5 provides some object iteration facilities. Using the for each statement, you can iterate all the feasible properties, and you can also implement one of PHP 5's internal interface in a class, and then you can override the iterative related function, or you can use the existing style of iteration. So some iterators are there. Okay, these are some PHP design patterns. Design patterns are patterns or features to solve basic some common programming problems. One of the design patterns is factory. I think factory provides a way to dynamically create objects. So this class defines the factory method, and it can dynamically create objects based on the parameter supplied. So we can dynamically create an object with MySQL driver or with SQLite driver, and factory method will provide that thing, and we can keep this under some conditional stuff based on our situation. So when we call this and factory method gets called, and we create MySQL driver based object. Okay, you already understand that. Singleton design pattern provides a way so that there can have only one instance of an object. It can be useful in situations like loggers. You can have only one logger object throughout your program, so that all the logging functionality is handled by one object, and it is centralized logging. So singleton ensures that only one instance of a class is there and provides a global access point to that instance of that class. So example, how to implement? We have to create a singleton function inside the class, and using this singleton method, we provide this single instance. We ensure this single instance. So what it is checking, you will check if the instance is there. If so, it is returning the existing instance. Otherwise, it is returning the existing instance here. Otherwise, it is creating the new instance. How do we invoke it? So to create the object instance, we have to call the singleton method. We cannot call the new, that will be an error. So you have to call the singleton method, and that will create the instance of that object and ensure that there is only one instance of that object. So we are calling the singleton method again. So it will not create another object, it will just reuse the previous object. This reuse, it is just using this, and this part, as nothing is created, that one will use this block. Okay, but all of this will raise a fatality if you try to create instance of this object in this way. It will create an error. A list of the magic method. Final keyword, we already know this final keyword. We can use final keyword before a class name or before a method name. Properties cannot be declared final. So method and classes can be declared as final. When we define a method to be final, it cannot be overridden by the child class. When we define a class to be final, it cannot be extended or inherited. Object cloning. In PHP 5, you can clone or create a copy of an object, of an existing object. I already have told it. You can use the clone function for this purpose. You can use these operators to compare two objects. The first one will say two objects are equal if the values of the attributes are same and thereof they are from the same class. But these three equality operator, they will say two object variables are the same if they point to the same instance, same address. Type hinting. I already have told that type hinting provides the means that we can indicate what can be the expected function parameter. And this applies to arrays and objects. Here you can see this function is expecting an object variable of this class, expecting array type of parameter. Left static binding. Actually, if we be using self scope resolution who, output of this function could be A, self would be indicating A. But sometimes if we need to refer to the caller, then we can use static. So output of this will be static. So PHP 5 has introduced this to overcome the limitation of self. So other object-oriented features, namespace, you can define namespace just like package, like C++ or .NET. So these are the changes and different versions. The latest version is 5.5. So this slide was actually created in 2011 and the PHP 5.4 was the latest at that time. So you can see the change log for PHP 5.5. You will get some more information. Okay, you can use this as the reference and you will get most of the information there. So that's all for today. We'll come back with advanced features of PHP or maybe I can come back with Symfony framework or Cake PHP framework or Coordinator framework or some specific advanced features of PHP. So anyway, that's all for today and have a good day. Bye.